Ever feel like you're doing all the right things and still wondering why your body feels off? You eat well, you train hard, your labs say you're fine, but deep down you know something's slipping. You're not alone and you're not crazy. I'm Daniel Rasmussen, founder of Echelon Center for Longevity, and I've spent 2 decades helping high performers like you to reverse aging, reignite vitality, and finally get answers. On Unbreakable Vitality, we go upstream. We talk peptides, stem cells, precision diagnostic testing, reversing the age of your arteries, all the innovative science-based tools to take back your health span so that your next decades are your best yet. Because aging is real, but decline is optional. You feel fine until you don't. And by then, the damage has already begun in your arteries, your energy systems, and your brain. It wasn't the cholesterol. It wasn't your genetics. It was what was hiding underneath. Silent inflammation, hormonal imbalances, and nutrition deficiencies. These are the invisible accelerators of aging and the ones that conventional medicine barely talks about. You could have perfect labs and still be biologically aging 10 to 15 years too fast. In today's episode of Unbreakable Vitality, I'll unpack how these three forces quietly sabotage your vitality, your age, and your vascular system, and set you up for a health crisis in the future unless you intervene upstream. You're going to learn how to spot the signs, test for what really matters, and take control before the symptoms ever hit. Let's get into it. So, one of the most dangerous beliefs I see in patients is this: my labs are normal, I have good genes, and so I must be fine. Well, let's unpack that. First, normal labs, the kind you get at your annual physical from your GP or PCP, are not designed to optimize health or detect dysfunction early. They're designed to catch a disease after it has already progressed. Most reference ranges are based on population averages of sick people. Okay, not what helps humans feel, think, and perform their best, or optimal marker ranges. So if the average American is inflamed, insulin resistant, and aging fast, normal doesn't mean healthy. It means common, and common is not normal. Second, let's talk about the myth of good genetics. I've lost count of how many people have told me, I've got great genes. My dad lived to 90. My mom never had heart issues. Here's the truth. Your genes are not your destiny. Whether they're good or bad, they're not your destiny. They're a blueprint. But what really determines your health outcomes is epigenetics. The way your environment, stress, nutrition, sleep, and toxins influence which genes get turned on or off. So you can have the gene for early onset Alzheimer's or heart disease and never express it if you manage your biology correctly. On the flip side, you can inherit great genes and still end up aging 15 years too fast if your hormones are depleted, your gut is inflamed, and your micronutrients are bottomed out. Let me share a quick story. 48-year-old woman came to us, super active. She was a clean eater. She's a high achieving executive. And she said, I feel off, but my labs are all fine. My doctor says I'm in great health. I've got great genes. My mom's sharp at 88. We ran advanced diagnostic testing. Her CRP and MMP9 were off the charts. DHEA and estradiol were bottomed out. Her magnesium, CoQ10, and B12 were suboptimal. Her biological age was 11 years older than her actual age. She had no idea that the slow burn of inflammation and hormone depletion was accelerating her aging. This is why we have to look deeper. This is why we test differently. Clean labs and good genes aren't guarantees. They're often excuses to kick the can down the road, delay action. And then by the time symptoms show up, the body's already been whispering for years, for decades sometimes. So we're going to explore one of the biggest whispers and one of the most overlooked solutions, and that is hormone optimization. So hormones are not just chemical messengers, they are the architects of resilience, repair, and longevity. When it comes to vascular health, their influence is nothing short of profound. Let's start with testosterone. Often misunderstood, even feared in aging conversation. Testosterone isn't just about libido or muscle mass. It's a vascular repair molecule. It upregulates nitric oxide synthase, which increases nitric oxide, the gas that releases blood vessels and relaxes blood vessels and improves endothelial flexibility. Low testosterone leads to endothelial stiffness, impaired oxygen delivery, and even altered cholesterol metabolism. It also enhances mitochondrial biogenesis, meaning it supports the creation of new mitochondria inside your cells, including those in cardiac, the heart, and vascular tissue. Okay, so now what about estrogen, or otherwise known as estradiol? Yes, even in men, it is essential for arterial pliability, your libido, and it improves the expression of eNOS, endothelial nitric oxide synthase, supports your HDL cholesterol levels, and reduces oxidative LDL formation. Estradiol also downregulates NADPH oxidase, which is responsible for reactive oxygen species, ROS, generation, a key trigger for oxidative stress and vascular aging. Now, DHEA, the parent hormone and precursor to both estrogen and testosterone. DHEA plays a critical role in immunomodulation. It suppresses pro-inflammatory cytokines like IL-6 and TNF-alpha. Low DHEA is associated with higher plaque burden, reduced adaptive immune regulation, and accelerated cellular aging. And then there's cortisol, the alpha hormone. It's the most misunderstood hormone of them all. Cortisol isn't just a stress hormone. It's a rhythm regulating, inflammation resolving hormone when properly balanced. But when dysregulated, in the thousands of labs that we've ran, I would say probably 85 to 90% have cortisol dysregulation because of the stressful modern day life and stressful events in their life. But when this hormone is dysregulated, either chronically elevated or completely flatlined, it can accelerate endothelial breakdown of your arteries in your heart. Why? Because it increases vascular permeability, the leaky gut. Remember we talked about that? Well, now you have leaky vessels, which disrupts the tight junctions and amplifies the recruitment of those macrophages into the arterial walls, which is the process of plaque formation. Cortisol also impacts glucose regulation, which has downstream effects on glycation end products, or AGEs, sticky molecules that attach to collagen and accelerate vascular rigidity, which increases your blood pressure and puts stress on the heart. Here's the nuance. Most people miss you can't assess hormone health with a single snapshot lab. Okay, that's a nuance. You can't assess hormone health with a single blood draw snapshot. A morning testosterone draw or a random cortisol reading doesn't tell you anything about your hormone rhythm. Oh, I had my cortisol checked by my doctor, blood test. They said it's fine. Means nothing. We measure cortisol through a 4-point salivary profile and evaluate hormones across time and context through a 12-hour day. This allows us to see if your hormone response is adaptive, flatline, or spiking in the wrong places. When hormone architecture starts to falter, you may not feel it right away, but your arteries do. Your cognitive speed, sleep architecture, mitochondria output, and emotional stability all begin to degrade quietly, creeping up little by little. Pretty soon, you're waking up in the middle of the night. You don't know why. You can't get to sleep. You can't stay asleep. You're waking up exhausted. The vicious cycle has started. Most doctors will say, well, you're still in range, but you're not optimal. You're not resilient, and you're definitely not reversing your age. You're accumulating silent decay. So now I want to take another look at another massive accelerator of aging. This is low-grade chronic inflammation. Their role in endothelial or blood vessel and artery repair, inflammation, and brain health, the difference between a snapshot lab and a rhythm-based testing. So let's talk about this a little bit. When we look at chronic inflammation, it is one of the most underestimated and insidious accelerators of biological aging. It doesn't roar, it whispers constantly, 24/7. And by the time it's loud enough to feel it, significant damage has already been done. When we talk about inflammation, most people imagine acute injuries. Oh, it hurt my knee. I have inflammation in my knee now. Sprained ankle, sore throat, a visible infection. But what I'm talking about is low grade, persistent, system wide inflammation, the kind that flies under the radar of your standard blood work, yet it erodes the resilience of your body every single day. So let's go a little deeper on that. One biomarker in the blood is C-reactive protein. It's one of the most widely used markers of inflammation, actually. But what matters most is HS-CRP, C-reactive protein. This is high sensitivity CRP, which detects the chronic low level type that fuels plaque instability, brain fog, and metabolic decline. Above 3.0 on your biolabs and you're on biological fire. So next we look at interleukin 6, IL-6, a cytokine that increases with aging, obesity, poor sleep, and stress. IL-6 plays a pivotal role in the development of atherosclerosis and is linked to both heart disease and neurodegenerative disorders. MMP9, or matrix metalloproteinase 9, is an enzyme that breaks down collagen and the arterial walls. High MMP9 weakens structural integrity and is directly associated with soft plaque rupturing. Most doctors never test for it, but we do, and we catch silent vascular threats years in advance because of it. Now let's add the often overlooked players. Homocysteine, which is a sulfur-containing amino acid. When elevated, it becomes toxic to your arteries, the lining of the arteries called endothelium, and it accelerates oxidative stress. So it's also tied to B vitamin status, particularly B6, B12, folate, and thiamine. Guess what? Normal labs rarely include it. Fibrinogen, a clotting factor that becomes elevated during inflammation. High levels increase your risk of thrombosis, stroke, and vascular rigidity. And then there's ferritin, typically thought of as a storage marker for iron, but it's also what's called an acute phase reactant. So when inflammation is present, ferritin climbs. When you have a chronic and low-grade subclinical infection, ferritin climbs because your body's trying to hide that iron away from that infection, the bacteria that use iron. So why aren't these markers tested regularly? Well, because conventional medicine still sees inflammation as something you treat when it's obvious, such as arthritis, an infection, or trauma. But chronic inflammation that's low grade, destroying your future health, they're not trained to detect it. And worse, they're not incentivized to treat it until it becomes a disease. At the Echelon Center, we look for these silent flames before they become wildfires. When we see elevated HS-CRP, MMP9, homocysteine, and fibrinogen in someone who feels fine, we know their body is in a pro-inflammatory, pro-aging state. And inflammation doesn't just affect the heart, it breaks down the blood-brain barrier, disrupts neurotransmitter balance, impairs immune modulation, and depletes mitochondrial deficiency. You won't feel the inflammation until it's been burning for a long time, but your arteries, they feel it every day. So now we're going to talk about nutrient deficiencies that you may not even know you have. Markers like CRP, IL-6, MMP9, the systemic damage it causes, and go more in depth in nutrient deficiencies. So micronutrient deficiencies, if you look at the way your hormones and inflammation are the architects of aging, then micronutrients are the builders. And most people are silently deficient. Not dangerously so, but just enough to weaken their vascular resilience, mitochondrial output, and overall vitality without setting off alarm bells on a standard lab panel. So these aren't just vitamins, okay? These aren't just your multivitamin that you get at the grocery store. They are cofactors in biochemical reactions that your body runs 24/7 to stay on top of and biologically young. We test far beyond the top 10, but here's where we usually begin. First, you got to know your vitamin D status. Vitamin D modulates over 1,000 genes, regulates your immune balance, and supports endothelial nitric oxide production. So low D means higher vascular stiffness, increased arterial calcification, and reduced mitochondrial output, in addition to immune weakness. Magnesium, which is another critical mineral, supports ATP synthesis. Cardiac, it regulates your cardiac rhythm. It regulates blood pressure and smooth muscle function. So it also prevents excess calcium influx into vascular cells, which can lead to hardening of the arteries. Very, very important. The third one is CoQ10. Acts as both an antioxidant and electron shuttle in the mitochondrial electron transport chain. It prevents LDL oxidation, improves the artery energy generation. Statins deplete it. Cholesterol medication depletes this CoQ10, which is accelerating your vascular fatigue. Now, next, we want to talk about the B complex, vitamin B12, B6, folate, which all regulate homocysteine and anion gap, which when elevated acts like a biochemical sandpaper on your arteries. So homocysteine, remember, it's not good. B2, which is otherwise known as riboflavin, is essential for converting folate into its active methylated form, especially critical individuals with the MTHFR gene variants. B1, which is thiamine, supports pyruvate dehydrogenase complex in the Krebs cycle, glucose metabolism, and is vital for regulating the anion gap in acid-base balance. So another thing about acid-base balance, when your body is acidic and the anion gap levels going up, this is a sign that you can't get nutrients in through the cell wall and you can't get metabolic waste products out of the cell wall. So the toxins build up inside the cell and you have cellular micronutrient deficiencies. So you can supplement till the cows come home. You're not going to supplement your way out of this. You have to fix these barriers, these inflammation markers, such as anion gap, in order to get those supplements rebuilt up into the tissues to even get them to absorb. We see so many patients, we run their labs and all these levels, these micronutrient deficiencies are depleted. They're like, I'm supplementing all these every day. Well, I don't get it. They're not absorbing. Your gut and your anion gap and everything that's off, you can't even absorb these micronutrients, even if you supplement them. So zinc is another one, essential for over 300 enzyme systems. It balances your immune function. It supports your gut lining integrity, is indirectly controlling systemic inflammation. Next, we have selenium, vital for glutathione recycling through your body and thyroid hormone activation. Selenium is critical. Low levels increase oxidative stress throughout the body and have been correlated with elevated cardiovascular mortality. Next, we have omega-3 fatty acids, the EPA and DHA. We test the omega-3 index to assess your overall inflammation modulation and membrane fluidity, the cellular membrane. Low EPA, DHA levels correlate with arterial plaque, depression, and systemic inflammation. Vitamin A, crucial for mucosal immunity, endothelial regeneration, and cellular differentiation. It works synergistically with vitamin D and zinc, potent antioxidant. Vitamin E, or tocotrienols, lipid-soluble antioxidant that protects against peroxidation of fatty membranes, especially in cardiac tissue. Finally, we have vitamin K2, or MK7, helps shuttle your calcium out of arteries and out of abnormal bone spur deposits and back into healthy bone circulation or bone formation. So deficiency of MK7 is associated with rigidity of the arteries, arterial calcification, osteoporosis, and bone spurs formation. We test beyond the normal ranges, focusing instead on optimal thresholds for biological repair and vascular longevity. Deficiencies in these nutrients don't always show up as fatigue or illness. They show up as slower recovery, brain fog, elevated biological age when you test for it, or a carotid artery immediate test scan that looks for the plaque formations in your carotid arteries, which represent systemic plaque formation. This is why we test. This is why we are replete with precision. And this is why our patients often feel 10 plus years younger. They're feeling it because we've restored the cofactors that their body was starving for. So next, I want to talk about how we personalize this in the Echelon Center for Longevity, how we personalize all this data into actual protocols, and why your doctor likely hasn't even looked this deep. So the link to mitochondrial health, cognition, your mood, plaque stabilization. Why standard labs miss all these suboptimal levels. I want to share a story about Brian. Brian is 52, runs a successful business. He's an entrepreneur. He shows up for his family. He's the kind of guy who tries to do everything right. Eats mostly clean, gets in some strength training a couple times a week, tries to keep stress in check. Over the last few years, Brian noticed things that were starting to slip. A little more belly fat, little by little every year, despite working out. Energy crashing by the mid-afternoon, almost needing naps at work to just be able to focus. He was waking up at 2 or 3 a.m. and not falling back asleep, or sometimes taking an hour or two to fall back asleep. A constant low-level brain fog, like he wasn't quite himself. His doctor ran all the normal, usual labs and told him everything was fine. You're the picture of health. Cholesterol normal, blood pressure a little high, but manageable. Probably just aging, they said. You're just getting a little older. But Brian knew something was off. His spidey sense went off. So when he came into the Echelon Center, we ran the full diagnostic stack. His vascular age came back 9 years older than his biological age. Oxidized LDL, fibrinogen, MMP9 were highly elevated. His cortisol curve was flat. Stress hormone dysregulation. Testosterone and DHEA were below optimal. B vitamin levels were subpar, especially B1, his thiamine, B6, and his CoQ10. Also, his magnesium was borderline deficient. So he wasn't getting magnesium into his red blood cells. So in short, Brian wasn't just aging, he was unraveling, albeit silently. So we designed a targeted protocol, a personalized movement, and sleep program to restore his circadian rhythm balance. We designed a precision nutrition plan for him, tailored to his micronutrient depletion, food sensitivities, and his metabolic needs. So we had him do some biohacking therapies, including red light biophotomodulation therapy, cold exposure timing, timed meals, umbilical cord plasma infusion, ozone IV infusion, and mitochondrial support stacks like PQQ and NAD precursors. Within just 60 days, his energy was up 75%. By 90 days, he had lost 12 pounds. His belly fat was gone. You could see his six-pack again. His fatty liver reversed. His visceral fat was gone. At 6 months, we retested his vascular age. It had dropped by 5 years already. In 6 months, Brian didn't just feel better. His biology was reversing this chronic disease pattern that was boiling under the pot lid. So this is what happens when you test for performance, not just disease. When you ask why instead of just treating what. Most conventional systems aren't designed to look at this deep. They treat symptoms and then they wait for the disease to arrive. Well, let's see if it gets worse and then we'll do something. Kick the can down the road, react after you have a problem. But at Echelon, we catch it upstream. You don't have to wait for something to break before you fix it. You just have to ask the right questions and be willing to look beyond the surface. So let's wrap up with your next step, how we build personalized programs to correct these silent accelerators and silent killers. Let's talk about reversing fatigue, inflammation, and vascular risk. If you're tired of feeling like your labs are lying to you, you're not alone. It's time to go deeper. Definitely. Start with just taking a free vascular age quiz at echelon-longevity.com/quiz to see how fast your arteries are aging, get an idea, and discover which invisible drivers might be accelerating your decline. This quiz is your very first step toward personalized upstream longevity and the data that puts you back in control. In the next episode of Unbreakable Vitality, I'm answering one of the biggest questions I hear. Can plaque really be reversed? Can calcification really be reversed? The long answer is powerful and packed with protocols you've never heard of before. You don't want to miss it. If you're feeling like your energy, your edge, or your clarity just isn't what it used to be, you're not alone, but you're also not stuck. Every week on Unbreakable Vitality, we explore real strategies to reverse aging, reclaim vitality, and rewrite what's possible. If today's episode gave you even one insight, pass it on. Then go take the free vascular age quiz at echelon-longevity.com/quiz to see how your body's aging. Subscribe, leave a review, and follow us because your future isn't on autopilot. You are building it and you're just getting started.